On a children's ward in England, nurses were trusted above all, but across 2 continents and 3 decades, 5 caregivers turned predators, sentenced to life for the unimaginable crime of killing their own patients. Dozens of unexpected emergencies, evidence hidden in plain sight, and families blindsided by betrayal. How did serial killers like Lucy Letby and Beverly Allitt evade suspicion for so long, and could it happen again? The real story begins where trust was first shattered. In the winter of 1991, the children's ward at Grantham and Kesteven Hospital became a place parents feared. Over just 59 days, a series of unexplained emergencies sent shockwaves through the small Lincolnshire community. 4 children died. 9 others suffered sudden collapses. Many were left with permanent injuries. At the center of every incident stood Beverly Allitt, a 22-year-old nurse with an unremarkable record and an easy smile. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Cardiac arrests spiked without warning, sometimes within hours of each other. Staff who had never seen such clusters in their careers began to whisper. It was Becky Phillips's death that first forced the issue. Her twin sister, Katie, nearly died days later under Allitt's care, revived only after desperate intervention. Whispers turned to alarm as nurses noticed Allitt present at every emergency, always in control of the medication cupboard, always the first to respond. Syringes became the focus. Forensic teams discovered evidence of insulin overdoses in at least 2 children. Those doses were far beyond any medical need. In other cases, air bubbles had been deliberately injected, causing catastrophic embolisms. The attacks were subtle, almost impossible to prove at first, but the evidence mounted. Hospital administrators called police. The children's ward became a crime scene. Grief-stricken parents demanded answers. They pressed investigators, attended hearings, and spoke to the press, determined that no more families would suffer in silence. Their activism kept the case alive, even as authorities struggled to explain the unthinkable, a nurse targeting the most vulnerable. At trial, Allitt pleaded not guilty to all charges. The courtroom filled with the faces of families who had lost children and nurses who had sounded the alarm. Medical records, forensic reports, and staff testimonies painted a clear picture. On May 28, 1993, the jury found Allitt guilty of 4 murders, 11 attempted murders, and 11 counts of grievous bodily harm. She received 13 concurrent life sentences. Psychiatrists diagnosed her with Munchausen syndrome by proxy, but debate erupted over whether she was truly ill or simply cruel. She was sent to Rampton Secure Hospital, where she remains decades later. Her minimum tariff expired, but her release still denied. For the families, the verdict brought relief, but not closure. The question lingered: how had the warning signs gone unseen for so long? A stack of more than 200 confidential handover sheets, hidden beneath a bed, shifted the entire direction of the Lucy Letby investigation. These were not official records stored in a file room or scanned into a hospital database. They were daily patient summaries, names, conditions, medication dosages, quietly removed from the neonatal unit and kept out of sight for months. Investigators described the find as chilling. Prosecutors called them psychological trophies, evidence that Letby wanted to remember the details of each shift and every vulnerable infant under her care. In Manchester Crown Court, the document cache became the centerpiece of a relentless cross-examination. Nicholas Johnson, King's counsel leading the prosecution, pressed Letby for answers. Why take home so many sheets? Why keep them hidden? Why scribble notes about resuscitations and drug timings on pages meant to be destroyed? Letby insisted these were innocent mistakes, habits picked up during stressful nights. But the volume and precision of the records told a different story. Forensic experts pored over handwriting, ink types, and timestamps, matching Letby's notes to the exact moments when babies had collapsed or died. The courtroom grew tense as parents listened to the details. Some sheets listed drugs administered within minutes of unexplained emergencies. Others included personal observations not found in official charts. Expert witnesses debated whether these notes reflected a meticulous nurse or someone intent on controlling the narrative after the fact. The prosecution argued that the sheets allowed Letby to relive the events and shape her own version of what happened in the unit. Letby's defense team pointed to gaps in hospital procedure, questioning why such documents were ever accessible in the first place. Yet, the handover sheets became a symbol of deeper institutional failures. The discovery forced hospital regulators to act. Letby was suspended from the Nursing and Midwifery Council register, pending permanent removal. Internal reviews began, scrutinizing every staff complaint and every missed warning sign. For the families, the revelation of hidden records brought a measure of relief, but also renewed anger. Each page was a reminder of trust broken and lives lost. The aftermath stretched far beyond the courtroom, fueling public calls for stricter oversight and lasting change in neonatal care. At the DaVita Dialysis Clinic in Lufkin, Texas, the routine was strict, but the mood was tense. Patients arrived 3 times a week, trusting the staff with their lives as machines filtered their blood. In April 2008, that trust shattered. One by one, patients began suffering sudden cardiac arrests during treatment, far beyond what any nurse or technician had seen before. When word spread that 5 people had died and 5 more were left injured in just a few weeks, the clinic became the focus of a homicide investigation. Kimberly Clark Science, a licensed vocational nurse, was on duty during every incident. Her co-workers grew uneasy. Some noticed her preparing syringes near cleaning supplies, which contained bleach. 2 patients, Lurleen Hamilton and Linda Hall, later testified in court that they saw Science draw liquid from a bleach bucket and inject it directly into the IV lines of those receiving dialysis. At first, they hesitated to speak out, fearing for their safety. But as more patients collapsed, they reported what they had seen. Investigators moved quickly. They gathered blood samples from the affected patients and sent them to forensic chemists. The lab results showed traces of sodium hypochlorite, the active chemical in household bleach, in the bloodstreams of the victims. Bleach had no legitimate place in a dialysis line. The evidence was clear. These deaths were not medical accidents. They were acts of deliberate poisoning. Sansa's computer searches revealed she had researched whether bleach could be detected in the blood and how it might affect patients. In court, prosecutors argued this proved intent. The jury agreed. In April 2012, Sansa was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to life without parole. Families of the victims, devastated by the betrayal, pushed Texas lawmakers for stricter oversight of outpatient clinics, demanding safeguards to prevent such crimes from happening again. Their advocacy spurred a wave of new regulations, but the scars of those lost remained. An alert flashed on the Veterans Affairs Hospital Analytics dashboard, an unusual spike in patient deaths on Ward 3A. The data did not lie. Too many veterans were dying from unexplained hypoglycemic episodes, and nearly all the incidents occurred during overnight shifts. Veterans Affairs statisticians on the internal audit team started combing through months of medication logs, cross-referencing every insulin administration with staff schedules. Patterns emerged. Each time a patient's blood sugar dropped fatally low, one name appeared on the roster: Rita Mays. Mays was a nursing assistant trusted to care for aging veterans at the Lewis A. Johnson Veterans Affairs Medical Center in West Virginia. She had no authority to prescribe or administer insulin, yet the audit revealed her presence at every suspicious event. The numbers were damning. 7 men, each a former service member, died after sudden, catastrophic insulin overdoses. Their families, who had entrusted their loved ones to the Veterans Affairs, began demanding answers. They wrote letters, called administrators, and organized meetings, refusing to let the deaths be dismissed as inevitable or accidental. The audit team's findings triggered a federal investigation. But bureaucracy slowed the process. Months passed as officials debated next steps, reviewed protocols, and weighed reputational risk. Meanwhile, families waited in agony, forced to relive their grief at every delay. Some filed federal lawsuits, accusing the Veterans Affairs of negligence and demanding oversight reforms. The hospital's leadership faced public scrutiny, and the Department of Veterans Affairs came under congressional investigation for its handling of the case. In July 2020, Mays pleaded guilty to 7 counts of murder and 1 count of assault with intent to commit murder. The judge handed down 7 consecutive life sentences. Courtroom benches filled with veterans' families, many clutching photographs and service medals, watched as justice was finally delivered. Yet the scars of bureaucratic inertia remained. For many, the most painful truth was that the warning signs had been visible in the data all along, if only someone had acted sooner. Heather Presti's case shattered any illusion that digital privacy shields intent from justice. Investigators from Pennsylvania's cyber forensics team pulled months of messages from her phone and social media accounts, uncovering a pattern that prosecutors would later call chilling. In texts to her mother and friends, Presti vented about patients she described as annoying or better off gone. She wrote about resenting colleagues, feeling trapped by the demands of care, and wishing harm on those she was supposed to heal. Some messages went further, spelling out her desire to end the suffering, her words not her patients, and her belief that no one would ever suspect a nurse. This digital trail became the prosecution's linchpin. Each message was time-stamped, matched to patient records, and presented in court as evidence of premeditation. The jury saw how Presti's language grew darker in the days before each suspicious incident. Her defense argued these were only private frustrations, never meant to be acted upon, but the volume, tone, and timing left little doubt. Forensic analysts confirmed the authenticity of the texts, tracing them back to the original devices and accounts. The judge called the evidence overwhelming and disturbing. Presti received 3 life sentences plus 380 to 760 years, an extraordinary punishment reflecting both the number of victims and the court's determination to prevent any possibility of release. The facility that employed her overhauled its hiring and monitoring policies, implementing new psychological screenings and digital behavior audits for all staff. Administrators apologized publicly to families who filled the courtroom for sentencing. Some held photos of loved ones lost. Others spoke of relief, not just at the verdict, but at knowing the truth had finally come out. Their advocacy now drives local reforms, demanding that no nurses' warning signs go ignored again. Hospitals and clinics are built on trust, but behind locked doors and glowing monitors, cracks in the system have let unimaginable harm slip through. The first and most glaring risk lies in how easily dangerous medications can be accessed. In many facilities, a single nurse can withdraw powerful drugs, insulin, painkillers, even chemicals like bleach, using only a badge swipe or a handwritten log. Medication cupboards, meant to be secure, often rely on codes known to half the ward. In some cases, the audit trail is little more than a paper sheet, easily misplaced or ignored. When accountability is this thin, it takes only one determined person to turn a life-saving tool into a weapon. The second vulnerability is the absence of real-time analytics that could flag unusual patterns before tragedy unfolds. Hospitals collect mountains of data, doses given, alarms triggered, staff schedules, but rarely connect the dots as events happen. A sudden spike in cardiac arrests during a single shift or repeated emergencies on the same nurse's watch should trigger immediate review. Instead, incidents are often chalked up to bad luck, fatigue, or the unpredictable nature of illness. By the time a pattern is recognized, lives may already be lost. Statistical monitoring systems, where they exist, are usually geared toward billing or resource allocation, not the detection of foul play. A third and often overlooked gap is the lack of psychological vetting and ongoing fitness checks for staff. Pre-employment screenings, when performed, focus on credentials and criminal records, not on mental health or behavioral red flags. Once hired, most nurses and aides are never reassessed for psychological well-being, even after years of high-stress work. Boards responsible for professional fitness may only intervene after complaints have piled up, or media attention forces their hand. This means that someone struggling with burnout, resentment, or far more dangerous impulses can remain undetected on the front lines of patient care. Medication security, real-time data analysis, and psychological oversight, these are the fault lines where tragedy has found its way in. Without stronger safeguards, the risk remains not just theoretical, but painfully real. Whistleblowers are often the first line of defense when something goes wrong behind hospital doors. Yet, too many nurses and aides keep silent, fearing retaliation or career loss. In the wake of these 5 cases, advocacy groups have pressed for laws that shield staff who report unsafe practices, suspicious incidents, or repeated protocol breaches. In the UK, the Public Interest Disclosure Act and similar state-level protections in the US now require hospitals to provide confidential reporting channels and guarantee job security for those who speak up. The aim is to create a culture where frontline staff can raise concerns without risking their livelihoods. Another safeguard gaining ground is the integration of patient safety data across institutions. When a nurse or aide is disciplined or dismissed for misconduct, that information too often stays locked within a single hospital or health system. Regulators and patient advocates have called for national databases that track disciplinary actions, criminal charges, and license restrictions. In the United States, the National Practitioner Data Bank now collects and shares such records, making it harder for dangerous staff to move undetected from one facility to another. The UK Nursing and Midwifery Council has expanded its register of fitness to practice decisions, so red flags follow a worker from job to job. External audits provide a third layer of protection. After the convictions, some hospitals began inviting outside experts to review medication logs, staff schedules, and mortality data, not just after an incident, but as a routine check. These audits can catch patterns that internal teams might miss or overlook. Transparency is key. Findings are reported to hospital boards, regulators, and in some cases, made public. The threat of an unannounced audit keeps administrators vigilant and encourages honest record-keeping at every level. Together, these reforms, including whistleblower protections, shared data systems, and independent audits, form a roadmap for preventing the kind of tragedies that haunted Grantham, Chester, Lufkin, Clarksburg, and Butler. They are not a cure-all, but each step brings healthcare closer to a system where trust is earned and maintained, not taken for granted. Even today, healthcare systems struggle to spot warning signs before lives are lost. Over 400 healthcare professionals worldwide have faced criminal charges for harming patients since 2000, yet reporting gaps persist. Every hospital visit still depends on trust that cannot always be guaranteed by policy alone. The real challenge now is vigilance from within and accountability that reaches beyond the headlines. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.